Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another predictions video. And in today's video I'm going to be predicting the Dubois versus Usyk fight. If you are new around here though and you haven't subscribed, please do so. Like the video if you do need like the video, and let's get straight into it. So going into this fight, Usyk is 20-0 with 13 KOs and Dubois is 19-1 with 18 KOs. This fight is for the IBF, IBO, WBA and WBO World Heavyweight titles. Usyk's last fight was a win via split decision versus Joshua, and Dubois' last fight was a win via TKO in round 3 versus Lorena. Usyk is 36 and Dubois is 25. Dubois' loss came via KO in round 10 versus Joyce in 2020. This is arguably Dubois' toughest test to date, and let's just speak a little bit more about what I've just said there. So Usyk last fight, like I mentioned, victory versus Joshua. Split decision, in my opinion, should have been unanimous decision. I think it was a very clear and obvious victory, and another boxing, to an extent, masterclass. He did exactly what he had to do. He didn't let any of the kind of outside media stuff really get to him about anything, and stayed focused, did exactly what he had to do, won convincingly, and really shut down anything about Joshua, really, and humbled Joshua to an extent. And well, when it maybe not after the fight, because he was a little bit agitated after the fight, Joshua, but eventually I feel like he has humbled down a little bit now, and I feel like Usyk really showed his dominance and his ability in that fight, and it was one of his, if not his best performance, one of his best performances that he's shown, especially in the heavyweight division. Dubois' last fight though, it was a strange fight. He got an injury. He got knocked down 3 times in a round, which should have, from what I know, should have meant that he lost the fight because of the, I believe it was WBA rulings. It means that he should have lost that, but he didn't. Lorena didn't do enough to close it out. I feel like he definitely could have closed it out. Dubois didn't look at all confident in his ability. He was injured as well, which didn't help, and it just wasn't a good performance, and I'm sure it's one that he's going to want to put away and lock far away and not be thinking about it, and it's going to be interesting to see how his confidence is coming into this fight. Of course, there is a big age gap. Usyk has that 11-year age deficit, I suppose, compared to Dubois, and it's not yet necessarily been shown yet of any of the negatives of that age, and it's not necessarily a bad thing that he's still fighting at this top level and still, like I said, fighting amazing fights. So it doesn't necessarily matter that he is the older fighter. It's just maybe at one of these fights it might catch up to him, but for the moment you've got to think that it's not going to catch up to him because of he's fighting so well, and Dubois is just going to have that youthfulness maybe a little bit more about him. And of course, he's had that loss in the past. He's faced a little bit more adversity than what I'd say Usyk has, and he's come back in. I mean, he came back versus Lorena in that fight, and came back from the Joyce defeat, and managed to rack victories back up again. And so he's faced adversity. He's managed to come back every time. The argument is that this is technical ability versus power. Dubois still got that technical ability. He's shown it in fights in the past. I mean, the Nathan Gorman fight, which was a little while ago now, but that was a very strong performance from Dubois, probably his best performance, and one which really showed his best ability, showed that he can outbox and does have his own elements of technical ability to him. So it's not just him with power, and I feel like Usyk, of course, has that more technical ability. It's undeniable, but you can't write off Dubois in that aspect, and of course he has that electrifying power, which is just another thing to add on top of Dubois' artillery. But let's speak more about the fighters. So Usyk, he sets traps, he's fast, he's slick, he's technical, got great movement, he's composed, accurate, determined, got great counters, he frustrates his opponents, he's hard to pin down, he's mentally tough, he improves throughout, he's fluid, he's front or back foot type fighter, he'll wear you down. He arguably may have that little bit of extra inner anger from everything going on outside, not just with his country, but with also the fight with Fury not happening as well. There might be that little added spite. He's smart, calculated, takes necessary risks, he's patient, he's arguably unlike any other heavyweight, got great timing, he's efficient, tricky, got a nice flowing jab, and finds his angles very well. I mean, I know I've just said so much there about him, but that's just how good he is. That's why he is one of the pound for pound best fighters. He's just, like I said, so much unlike any other real heavyweight at the moment. And I know he's come up from cruiserweight, and he is one of the smaller heavyweights, even though he's still quite a big guy in his own respect. But he's just gonna always have that added speed and that added accuracy and that added kind of fluid motions that a lot of heavyweights don't have, and that's why I like him so much. That's why I am such a big fan of him. That's why he's, in my opinion, entertaining. Some people might find it boring, but when you are somebody like myself who's just so enjoys so much of the actual technical aspect of boxing, then what Usyk displays at the weight he's at is just incredible and very, very impressive. And I feel like this could be, a lot of people are writing Dubois off, but this definitely could be too much of a tough opponent for Dubois. But Usyk has his own negatives. He's not as powerful, of course. He's a little bit of a slow starter. People always kind of speak about him being a slow starter. He can't really impose his own size. He's had over a year out. He possibly may be overlooking Dubois here. It seems like in the past he's overlooked a few of his opponents, possibly a little bit, but he's always kind of fought his best when there's been a lot of pressure, and I would argue that there's not really as much pressure, and it's not as big of a fight of what, maybe compare it to Joshua, it's not as big of a fight, and something he possibly may be overlooking. He does cover up when he's under pressure at times. He doesn't always counter, but does quite often. He doesn't like body shots, that's been shown, and if he is covering up, then he might leave his body open at points. He also needs to be up for the fight. Like I mentioned, he's had fights in the past where maybe he's not been up for it quite as much and he's not shown his best. I mean, he's also not amazing when he's under pressure, especially early on, and fights like the Chisora fight, like the Witherspoon fight, he got put under pressure, got caught with shots. He's got a decent chin, but he's not always necessarily not going to take shots, even though he has got great movement and great technical ability. It doesn't mean he can't get hit, and I feel like Joshua really led into what Usyk wanted him to do, because he just wasn't throwing enough and wasn't offering enough, and Usyk was just toying with him at that point because of there wasn't really much coming back in the way of attack against him, so he could just really do what he wanted, and that's why he can be impressive, because he does have that ability to really frustrate the opponents and make them fight his fight, and it is impressive. But let's speak about Dubois. He's strong, got a big build, he's powerful, he's faced adversity like I mentioned. He's not really got much pressure going into this. He's got a long reach, he can keep you at range. He, in my opinion, has to cut off the ring. He's aggressive, pressure fighter, got a powerful jab. He's never really out of the fight. He can flip momentum, and like I said, it's not going to be smart to underestimate him in this fight. I feel like you can't just write him off, and I feel like a lot of people are doing that, and I feel that Dubois can use a jab well. He can also follow up on shots quite well. He can use combinations quite well, and he's not relatively that slow either. He can have speed. He's got a great uppercut, and if he can execute his shots, his combinations well enough, then he can find success. He just can't be gun shy and has to be that mentally tough. But is he that mentally tough as what Usyk is? And Usyk's definitely going to test that mental toughness of Dubois, and I don't know if he is that mentally tough, and he's arguably a bit wild, a bit reckless at times. He is far from home. Usyk's arguably at home. Obviously, it's not in Ukraine, but he's going to have a lot of his supporters in Poland there for him. He's not used to being the underdog. Dubois, he can't use just singular shots. He has to follow up on his shots. He may lack his confidence, like I mentioned. He's not arguably consistent enough. He lacks head movement. He can punch himself out. And I mean, there's still arguments if he's still got any injury problems from that last fight as well. And I feel like Usyk, if he's going to lose this fight, it's going to be early on. Dubois is possibly going to find success earlier on. I feel like he knows that he has to put it on him, and probably will from the get-go, but Usyk improves throughout. He's going to find success at some point, that's inevitable, and he arguably could flip the momentum himself. And if he's going to frustrate Dubois, and if Dubois is going to come in wild, reckless early on, could possibly work in Usyk's favour as well, because he might be seen as predictable, see his shots come in and then be able to respond to them. And so it's going to be a very, very tough fight for Dubois, and one which I don't know if he has the ability to be able to beat. And Usyk is the favourite. I think that Usyk will win via TKO in round 11, TKO/stoppage. I think it's either going to be a corner stoppage, ref stoppage, possibly Dubois just taking a knee and sacking it off himself, and I wouldn't blame him if he is getting just absolutely picked apart by Usyk, his head just bouncing back to Dubois. And I feel like it could be a tough, long night, and it's going to have to be a very, very good performance for Dubois to win, in my opinion. And then where does Usyk go on to? Of course, Fury's the fight that everybody wants. Fury's the fight that everybody desires. Is it going to ever happen? I don't know. So I put his name down, but I don't know if it's ever going to happen. Hrgovic is the IBF mandatory. That will probably end up being next. It wouldn't surprise me if that's the next fight. Not a massive fight either. Hrgovic didn't look great in his last fight versus McKean, and it's a whatever fight. It's not massive either, really. And then the winner of Joshua versus Wilder, that could be a good fight. Wilder versus Usyk would be a good fight. Joshua, if he comes in, beats Wilder impressively, then there's more than likely a chance that a trilogy could happen with Usyk. And I feel like there's options for Usyk. I don't know how much longer he's going to be sticking around for, really, but for the moment he's fighting some of his best fights and looking some of the best he's ever been, and is possibly on the run to being one of the best heavyweights of all time. If he does fight Fury and win, then that's arguable that he is, but we'll have to wait and see for the moment. And yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like if you need, like, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.